Welcome to First Builders, the podcast for those who shape companies from the ground up. I'm Amber Illig, founder and general partner at the Council Capital.
And I'm Rachel Choi, partner at the Council. Whether founders or early team members, First Builders create the systems, teams, and strategy that scale startups. And we know they are more likely than most to found unicorn companies if they choose that path.
And today's guest has been cited by a former boss and CEO of Rupa Health as one of the best 0 to 1 hires out there. Now he's building his own company as a solo founder.
Koby Conrad is the CEO of Sunflower, building for the 1.2 billion people who struggle with addiction. And before this, he was employee number 10 and the first go-to-market hire at Rupa Health, where he helped scale the company from a 22 million seed stage valuation to a major acquisition by Fullscript.
We don't know the acquisition terms, but let's just say that multiple employees posted that they made life-changing money. It's one of those tech mafia moments, and Koby was at the center of it.
And now he's channeling that experience into building a new kind of addiction recovery platform, one grounded in product design, emotional resonance, and his own 7 years journey in sobriety.
We're so excited to talk about what Koby learned from Rupa, how he's applying it to Sunflower, and what it looks like to grow something deeply personal in public. Koby, welcome to First Builders. Welcome to First Builders, the podcast for those who shape companies from the ground up. I'm Amber Illig, founder and general partner at the Council Capital.
And I'm Rachel Choi, partner of the Council. Whether founders or early team members, First Builders create the systems, teams, and strategy that scale startups. And we know they are more likely than most to found unicorn companies if they choose that path.
And today's guest has been cited by a former boss and CEO of Rupa Health as one of the best 0 to 1 hires out there. Now he's building his own company as a solo founder.
Koby Conrad is the CEO of Sunflower, building for the 1.2 billion people who struggle with addiction. Before this, he was employee number 10 and first go-to-market hire at Rupa Health, where he helped scale the company from a 22 million seed stage valuation to a major acquisition by Fullscript.
We don't know the acquisition terms, but let's just say multiple employees posted that they made life-changing money. It's one of those tech mafia moments, and Koby was at the center of it.
Now he's channeling that experience into building a new kind of addiction recovery platform, one grounded in product design, emotional resonance, and his own 7-year journey in sobriety.
We're so excited to talk about what Koby learned from Rupa, how he's applying it to Sunflower, and what it looks like to grow something deeply personal in public. Koby, welcome to First Builders.
Amber, Rachel, it's so great to be here, you guys.
Awesome. Well, we instantly thought of you for this podcast because number one, your content is everywhere. I've been seeing it for years, given you're a growth genius, and you've even written a book on it. And then secondly, I've been following Rupa Health for a long time. I met the founder, Tara, at an event over 6 years ago. And despite being a busy founder, she took time to help connect me with community when I was basically a new angel investor on the SF startup scene. And she had no reason to help me. But I was also an early beta user of Rupa, and I noticed a big uptick in growth and brand awareness in the company after you joined. So I was super excited to see the acquisition last year. But my question for you is, you joined well before Rupa's success was obvious, and it really paid off. What made you take that leap?
So for me, I wanted to work with one of my best friends. So Rupa's third co-founder is Ben, who was our original head of engineering. And so I was running another startup at the time, and then COVID happened, and I do Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So they had shut down all of the gyms in San Francisco. So me and the 9 other crazy people that still wanted to do submission grappling in the middle of a pandemic, we bought a bunch of mats and we went out to Golden Gate Park. And Ben was one of the 9 crazy people that still wanted to do this. So I became really good friends with him. He's 2 founders in the jiu-jitsu club. And eventually I was running my other startup with my little brother. I'm 4 pivots in. I was okay, I love you to death. You keep figuring out what you want to build. He did eventually go off to do the SF Compute company, which is doing really good. But I was I'm a growth person. I need a product to grow. So I wanted to go and work on Rupa with my best friends. For me, it was completely about the people. I started with Ben and realized that Tara and Rosa were also just incredible, incredible humans to work with. The entire original founding team was A+++. And I love Ben to death. He was, especially at the time, he was kind of a stereotypical software engineer where I didn't realize how cool Rupa was until I came on board and I was there for 2 weeks because I thought I was I wanted to help him grow it, but I didn't realize how well it was doing. They had gone from 0 to $5 million a year in lab sales at the time.
Wow.
They had really flat retention. It was your stereotypical organic growth, no sales or marketing at that point. It was a really, they had stumbled upon PMF. And I think what we did from that point forwards is we helped them figure out, cool, we have this product that's working. We take this to actual scale now. But
Awesome.
why I joined, it was purely a people play for me.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great. And I'll have to get your tips sometimes on the jujitsu around the Bay Area because my brother-in-law and sister both do it. So whenever they come travel here, they're always looking for gyms in the area. So
I love
definitely
it.
will reach out for that. But yeah, so Amber and I actually, we talk a lot about like these high slope environments. And it sounds like, Rupa might have been one of those. But essentially, these are places where companies have to really change so rapidly every single quarter. Early team members are constantly stretching, they're growing to really meet that moment with the change. I'm curious, yeah, how was Rupa like that for you? And, in what ways?
Yeah. So the answer is yes. And it's an interesting question because Tara is one of these like unique humans, for lack of a better word, that takes everything seriously. And I think I kind of had a inclination to like kind of throw away certain advice, but she has this like childlike wonder about her where she's like anytime she encounters something she like takes it all in and just like absorbs whatever is useful about the advice or the situation. And there was always like a lot of like MBA stuff that I thought was like kind of silly, but it turns out that a lot of those things can be really, really helpful. So like examples of this are offer parties we would do to like bring on like new employees, like make them feel really special. So we'd all like throw up a screen and be like, whoa, we're so excited you're here. And everyone goes around in a circle and says something about like why we're really hyped about the candidate. And it was like, that was just, it's an example of one of those things that I thought was a little bit cheesy at the start, but like now I'm like hardcore. I'm pushing this down everyone else's throats now. Like you have to do offer parties. Um, there's so many things like that is like, more than any other like boss I've ever had in my life, she would keep track of everyone's like birthdays and like their start dates, and then do like always do like really special things for those. And it's always like unique on the person. So she'd like keep track of people's love languages and like try to make sure that she's like speaking in that way. So I think she really pushed me on just like a lot of like the people management and just like how to make like a really strong impact on your team more than any other company I'd ever been a part of. That was always just very like business focused and like make numbers go up. But yeah, I think it was a really special part of the Rupa culture that I hope has rubbed off on me well.
That's super cool. And we're definitely going to get into some of that because we want to hear all about your tips and tricks as somebody who's built multiple organizations within Rupa and inside of growth. And just curious, like, how did you personally grow? And do you feel like it kind of stretched you to new levels at different chapters of the company's history?
Yeah, so I definitely grew as like a people leader, I think. So when I started, like I was the first person on like the GTM's team. I think total by the time I left, there was like 50 humans in my org.
Goodness.
So I had to so I had to like definitely like level up as like a people leader, not just on like how I build my team and hire and manage and fire people, but also how do I create cross-functional organizations of like growth shouldn't just live on an island. Like we need to talk with like product and eng and like everything
Totally.
needs to be like working together. Um I don't know if I ever really truly perfected that, but I think I at least made steps forwards of just like how do we all work together as like a cohesive unit? Because just as you scale from like 10 people to hundreds of people, the way you communicate has to change. The way that you like have simple things like one-on-ones and like who you need to communicate with and how you do Slack messages versus like give presentations and all hands. I definitely had a lot of growth there as we scaled.
That's awesome. Yeah, it sounds like you like living two separate lives, like from beginning to end. So that's super cool. And then fast forward to last year when Rupa was acquired. What was it like watching something that you helped build from the ground up reach that milestone?
Yeah, so for me, it was a complete shock, honestly, because we had said like 1,000 times, oh, we're never selling to full script. We're never selling to full script. And then I had actually left a couple months beforehand. So I was completely in the dark. It was even being sold. So I had like the wrong email and Rippling. So when they like sent out all of like the acquisition paperwork, I didn't even get it.
Wow.
I got a call, like the way I found out was I got a call from Ben, like on a Wednesday, and he was like, "Koby, did you like hear the news? Like we sold the company." I'm like, "What?"
So disorienting.
Yeah, I thought he was like pulling a prank on me or something because
Wow.
I was like not gonna sell for like another 10 years. And yeah, so then I was like go track down this stuff. But it was definitely a life-changing moment for me. I think it like two things happened because of it. So the first one was like I was early leadership. I had a lot of equity in it. So it was definitely like a life-changing amount of cash for me. And for like the first time in my life, I was like finally rich enough to be able to afford my own time. I think a lot of people were like buying cars and fancy apartments and stuff. And I ended up selling all of my possessions and I moved down to Buenos Aires because I was like, I knew I wanted to build something. So I was like, I got rid of everything and I was like, the thing I want to buy with this money is freedom and my time to go and hack against something that I think is really, really important. So yeah, it was definitely really cool. And then the other piece of it, there's something about an acquisition story that creates leverage for like going and raising funds. So it had this element of like cash infusion plus really good storytelling momentum. So for me, it was a really good time to go and start my next thing.
That's awesome. And how's your Portuguese?
Spanish, but it's better. I have a girlfriend down here that doesn't speak any English, and when we started dating, it was very, very rough. But having a girl you're in love with is really good motivation for getting you to learn a new language. So I think I'm up to like 2,000 words on Duolingo now, just about.
Nice.
Good enough Spanish I can make friends with the grandma, so that's always a win.
It's awesome.
Yeah. That's the key, right? Being able to talk to the families. Cool. So let's talk about like your new company over here, Sunflower. You've written about your own sobriety journey online. And so what made you want or decide that this was a problem that you wanted to tackle?
So it's a combination of a number of things. I think with Rupa Health, one of my biggest learnings is the reason why our outcome wasn't bigger was ultimately the size of our market and just like the scope of our problem. So the first thing for me is I think addiction is this absolutely massive problem. I think it's one of the most painful things that humanity suffers from. If you add up like talk therapy plus medication assisted treatment and just like the cost of addiction on society, it's like north of like $100 billion problem that we spend on this. And so I think the problem is massive. Your lessons from Rupa is be careful with which mountains you climb to the top of because you might actually get to the top of it. Or for me, this is like, what is the biggest swing I can take? Then the second piece of it is addiction is a very supply constrained market where one of the biggest problems is like we literally just don't have enough good therapists to be able to meet the demand of this market. And AI is a really interesting solution to addiction. I think it's one of the things where there's like 1,000 like AI SDRs. I don't know if you guys are getting spammed by
Oh
them.
my gosh, yeah. My inbox is a mess.
We are the first AI sponsor. I'm actually like, please, someone else go make stuff to compete with us. Like I'm shocked that there's not more of these out there in the world because there's a lot of things within AI where we're in this like uncanny valley where the AI is like almost as good as the human. But in this category, the AI is like 10 times better than the human. Your therapist will only talk to you once a week for like an hour. They might charge you like $200 for that time. The AI will talk to you 24/7. It is smarter than 99% of therapists. It is infinitely patient. And one of the most underrated aspects is that there's so much guilt and shame wrapped up in therapy that the AI will never judge you. You can tell it your deepest, darkest, worst secrets, and it literally is like incapable of like judging you based off of that. And we see that show up with how people select their therapists. Is it's a very vulnerable thing. So they like tend to like bias towards like younger women because people feel more comfortable sharing their secrets there versus like older, scary men. I'm just generalizing here. So yeah, I think we're on a shift of technology where like AI is like for the first time ever, we're going to be able to create an infinitely scalable solution that's actively super, super impactful. I think it's an unloved market. I think that people, for whatever reason, have historically been hesitant of investing dollars and time and money and resources here. And it's a problem space that I know very well and care deeply about. I've written about it a little bit, but I used my TLDRs. I used to smoke too much weed, eventually grew up and realized that like I'm a way better version of myself if I'm sober. So I went through my own journey of just getting sober. I couldn't sleep properly for a month. I was eating like 1,000 calories a day for like 2 weeks. I went to this horrible depression for like 6 months because like my dopamine system was completely shot. So I had this like formative experience of just like getting over my own stuff. My grandpa died from alcoholism. My grandma passed away from cancer because she smoked cigarettes her whole life. So it's a problem space that I care about. And ultimately it's a combination, I think, of a problem I want to work on that I think is going to be able to have a massive impact on society. And ultimately, we'll be able to build a really, really massive business. It's a long
That's awesome. And then for listeners that haven't explored your app, Sunflower, what exactly is it? Like, how does it work?
Yeah. So the best way to describe us is we are a fully verticalized platform for addiction. So that's my VC answer. My consumer answer is we're a toolkit. You can come to us and we have all these different tools that help you stay sober. So the core of it is built around sobriety tracking. So this is the core task to be done for any addict. Doesn't matter your addiction type. The key thing you have to do is keep track of how long you've been sober for. So we use a really powerful form of this called visual progression tracking, which is like an image that changes every day. We also have a journal that's based off of CBT exercises. We have DIY educational courses for all the different major addiction types. There's a Threads meets Twitter style community, so you can go and talk to other people that are struggling with the same thing. And then one of the most powerful features of this is our AI sponsor. So you have a sponsor that lives at the center of this that you can talk to 24/7 with voice and messaging. Super, super powerful. And then the final thing that we literally just launched 2 days ago is we have a new feature called Find a Practitioner. So users can now find talk therapy and medication assisted treatments all within Sunflower. So the goal here is you come to us and we're like, here's everything you're going to need in order to recover. How do we build just the ultimate platform for you to be able to get over your addiction?
And you mentioned CBT, just for any listeners that don't know what that is. What is it?
Cognitive behavioral therapy. The really high level is sometimes your thoughts aren't true. And just because you think them doesn't mean that you're true. And this can manifest for different types of mental health disorders in different ways. For addiction, there's lots of fallacies that it shows up. So one example of this is like, oh, I've been sober for 30 days. I can handle my alcohol now. And then I take drinks and I fall right back into the same process. And there's lots of different flavors of it.
It's awesome. So why do people, obviously you're using Sunflower, they're getting in there. Why do they usually choose Sunflower over like a typical AA or in-person type of support group?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say they choose us over it. I would say they choose us in addition to it. So one thing we're definitely not doing is we're not trying to replace the human connection or the human element. So people use us in coordination with in real life resources, and like part of getting sober is like building a community of sober people. One of the sad things about addiction is that usually you end up losing all of your friends because all of your friends are also addicts.
It's that whole lifestyle.
Yeah. So I would definitely say we're in an addition to, and we get users that refer us within it. But why do they choose us? I think they choose us because we are the top of funnel. We're the simplest way to get started. I think there's this psychology of like, damn, I realize I have a problem and I need to do something. But going to a support group is scary. Trying to find a therapist is intensive. Is like, how do I find the right one? Maybe I don't have insurance, so I'm afraid that like I'm gonna have to pay like $200 per hour in like cash. Downloading our app is the simplest, smallest amount of friction thing that you can do to get started, to be like, I am sober right now. I download this app, I'm starting my quit date right now, and now I am a sober human. So yeah, I would say we're the easiest thing to do to get started, and we've basically kind of like built the top of funnel for this life cycle.
And what scared you most in the first few months of founding Sunflower?
Oh, scared me most. That is a complicated question. So technically, I'm gonna go for technically, Sunflower started before Rupa. Sunflower started because it was originally like my Learn to Code project. Trying to quickly answer your question. It was originally my Learn to Code project that I built like 2019. And I didn't think that I would be able to make it a real like VC-backed startup. I can't tell you how many investors I talked to that was like, hey, I really want to go down this path. And they're like, this is dumb. There's 1,000 apps here. Who else has made money in this space? I don't want to put cash here. So I had been told no about this idea like so many times that it was like kind of like terrifying to like go and like execute. Like once I was really like, cool, I'm gonna do this full time. And the reason why I like was able to go down this path is I had an Excel sheet of like, here's all the business ideas I'm gonna do once I quit Rupa. Sunflower was not like the sexiest thing to pitch to investors, especially before there was a product. And So yeah, I guess I was afraid that I would be able to get funding for it, I'd be able to like actually get it built. And the reason why I was able to go down this path is I literally forced this down everyone's throats. Like my first, we had kind of a party round in the pre-seed. Like the first 30 investors, 90% of the feedback I got was I absolutely hate this idea, but I love you as a founder. And I have conviction that you're going to go be able to do something really, really big. And without having built up like a network of people that were like willing to just write me a blank check for stuff that they didn't necessarily believe in on the product direction at the start, that's definitely scared me. So it's like, cool, will we actually be able to like get funding for this and like build the version of this thing that's in my head? So yeah, I guess it was like, will I be able to convince other people that this can be a thing?
Yeah, totally. That makes sense. And congrats on getting all of that like funding even before really launching the product. Clearly there's a lot of folks that have just like really strong conviction in you as a founder. So that's awesome.
Shout out to Tara and Ben and Rosa, everyone that came on board with just, hey, I'm going to go do something. Appreciate all of my early stage investors.
Awesome.
So we want to switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about what you've learned in the trenches and how you apply it today. Obviously, we mentioned this before at Rupa, you led the growth organization and, upwards of, I think, 50 people, like you mentioned in the department. So we want to get into some of the org building questions now.
Let's do it.
Yeah, cool. So when you think about, just like some of your best hires, what do they have in common? And then also, what did you learn from maybe your worst hires as well?
The worst hires are easy. The worst hires is I got blindsided by brands and experience. And I thought that just because they had done something somewhere else that they would be able to do it here. That's probably like the rookie mistake that most founders go through as they're like trying to hire people. I think all my best hires are high slope individuals. I think towards the end, I got really good at evaluating slope of an individual versus just their brand and experience. My best hires, they were all people that were fairly junior, that hadn't done it before, but they were just like absolute savages, super, super high IQ, worked extremely, extremely hard, could go and figure it out. And then those were the people that like came into a role, like learned really, really quickly and then just like absolutely crushed it. For most hires, bias really heavily towards slope of the individual rather than like, have they done this specific thing before?
Awesome. And just for fun, I reached out to your old boss, Tara, for a few guest questions. So she told us that you didn't even believe in management or process when you started, but since then you've done a full 180. So curious, like what kind of made that change?
That's interesting. Entrepreneurship is this really interesting thing where like you go, like, I don't know, at least especially for me, it was this journey of being like, I don't want to work at a big company. I hate bureaucracy and process. And then you go and start something and then it starts to get big and you're like, wait, I'm creating bureaucracy and process. And like, I have become the thing that I hate. So for me, I think it was a forcing function. Like what caused me to like do this is it was a forcing function. It's like I realized in order to build big, beautiful things, I needed to have an organization of humans. And it doesn't matter how good of an IC I am, eventually I am not going to be the one doing the work, which means that I can only execute through my team. So in order to execute better, I was forced to become better at managing humans to improve their output. It was the thing that was probably I was dragged into kicking and screaming, but I think eventually I was able to figure it out at least a little bit.
It's awesome. And let's just say somebody on your team is underperforming. What's the best way to handle that? And would you say you've always handled it well?
Have I always handled it well? No.
I don't know who has. So
yeah. I don't know.
That's an honest answer.
If anyone ever says yes to that question, let me know. Okay, so my flaws as a manager is I tend to have rose-colored glasses with people, and I want to support them and help them be successful. So I will let them stay on the team longer than I probably should, and I'll give them more leeway than I probably should. And the thing that really helped me stop that is looking at the overall team rather than the individual, and looking at my job as like, how do I cultivate this community rather than individual humans? So that allows me to focus on like, cool, is this person contributing or retracting, like detracting subtracting from this team. So that helps me be a little bit more objective. Is like, cool, it's not just this person, it's how this person's work affects everyone else on the team. Yeah, I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it definitely does. And so I guess, I like to always think about it too, is like how much I need to be kind of like involved as well, especially back when I was managing teams. Like, do you have a line between kind of giving someone freedom or being kind of too hands off, as a manager, especially when you're kind of like just, what's it like dancing in the line or, on there?
Yeah, I must be a really crazy person to work for because I alternate from like giving you extreme autonomy to like being extremely obsessive. And the reason for that is I work like I'm building an onion. I don't know if this makes any sense. Where I will dive into the details of a specific thing in just like extreme minutia, like pixel by pixel. And I will work with you to like go and build this out. And then like once it has been built out, I will hand it off to you to like execute. And then hopefully I never have to like think about it again. So maybe we're doing like Google ads and we're like getting our Google ads set up. I will be like super in the details and then I'll hand that off. And then I'll move on to like Facebook ads and then I'll move on to organic SEO and then I'll move on to like influencers and I'll move on to like podcasts. And I will start at the front of it and like work with someone to like go and like build out this thing. And so for my team, it must be this experience of, wow, Koby's like really in the details, to the exact like other end of the spectrum of like, I haven't talked to Koby in like 3 months. Like, what's going on? Not always exactly, but that's kind of my process.
It's awesome. And you did just mention influencers. I saw that you posted about this recently. Love to talk about influencer strategy because a lot of companies do spend way too much on influencers and realize much later on that they aren't really moving the needle. So what does doing it right look like? And one of the reasons I'm asking is because, you have thought so much about growth and have so much experience in that area. Would love to hear what you've learned.
Yeah. So the most effective influencer campaigns I've ever seen have almost always involved directly hiring the influencer. If you can get people on your team, it becomes really, really people look at influencers like an ads manager where like I pay you money and you post my post and what I am paying for is for like the reach of this post. And what they forget is that influencers are humans. They are capable of growth and learning. They're capable of getting like bought in on a mission. The same reason you would want to give your sales team equity, like you want your influencers to have equity. When they care about you, they're a defensible channel. Like unlike Facebook ads where like anyone can bid in the auction, like you can quote unquote own your influencers and like they can be on the team, and it's like it becomes much harder to penetrate things with that. So yeah, I almost always recommend of like trying to get them on board as much as possible in whatever capacity you can. The best scenario of that is like directly hire them, like give them a salary and equity, put them in stand up, all that jazz. And then the second thing is I think there's this, I don't know. What people do is they'll often go to the smallest influencer. Like they don't want to drop like a lot of money on a big influencer. So they're like, let's test it with like a bunch of like small people. I've very rarely seen micro influencer strategies work well. They're very hard to scale. And generally you can actually get a better ROI with the larger influencer. There's like a multiplication effect of being the biggest brand in your industry. So what you get with influencers is more than just their reach, but it's also the strength of their impression. So by being like the number one influencer in X industry, you have stronger impressions. So because of that, usually you can negotiate better deals with bigger influencers that are higher ROI. So I kind of have a controversial approach where I will go to like the biggest influencer in the industry and be like, I want to be your number one partner. Like, who is paying you money right now? How do I pay you twice whatever it is they're paying you? And like, how do I just get you like
Wow.
completely on board? And that has almost always been more effective than trying to like scrape up like a bunch of like tiny influencers and handle it that way.
It's really fascinating.
So yeah.
Yeah, especially because if you have like even one to three people that, everybody looks to them for advice in an industry and like they're constantly talking about you and it's part of their entire like narrative and arc, that's much better than just like a post that everybody knows is sponsored. Everybody knows it's just they're getting it out because they have to. So that's really interesting. Even if they know it's like sponsored because the person works there, it's like, wow, they chose to work with Sunflower. You know what I mean? Like that's a high bar. So that's cool.
Yeah. Oh, no, I was going to also say you're clearly also very active on different social channels. And How has like building in public help accelerate Sunflower's growth, alongside influencer strategy and all of those other things as well?
So maybe I'm just egotistical is the honest answer. I want people to know the cool stuff that we're doing. I think
That's
this
great.
kind of started with Rupa, where like everyone within functional medicine like knew the Rupa brands. But I would go to my like SF tech parties and everyone's like, what's functional medicine and like who is Rupa? And like this is like for doctors and stuff. So like the honest answer is like we started it, like me, Tara, and Cody, because it was like I just want to be famous a little bit. Like people should know this like cool stuff we're doing. If to give you a better answer, it has had benefits with like hiring and with fundraising. So it can definitely help connect you with like good tech workers that like want to come work for your company. There's absolutely like benefits for like fundraising of just like building up like hype on Twitter. But I wish more of my users were like on Twitter. But like for like actual users, the bulk of them are on like Facebook, which unfortunately I'm not as active on.
That's cool. And then your book, you've written a book on growth, channels of growth. It's now a go-to for a lot of early teams. And actually, I've bought it like probably, I don't know, 6 months ago or something.
Gosh.
But I'd love to know what's one principle from it that you think most founders overlook?
I think most people build things without ever thinking about how they're going to grow. Like, I've really seen a huge unlock in building products once you realize what channels are going to drive growth for your product. So my example with Rupa, right? One of our most effective things was we would go into schools and we would sponsor schools and we would get them to integrate us into their curriculum. So doctors would go through these different like boot camp educational institutions. So eventually we're spending a lot of money on that. And it was like, gee, wouldn't it be great if we like had our own like university? So we ended up like starting our own school and like we built a product basically replicating what we saw on the go-to-market side. It can also show up in like other channels like search where like we had this catalog of like lab tests. But we were getting a ton of search traffic, so we ended up making our lab catalog into what we call a reference guide, which is basically extracting all of the information, and like every test would now have a landing page with like meta description. Eventually, we like reinforced it with like AI content, but basically like taking all the information that lived behind a closed wall within the product and then like opening it up to Google. And the TLDR is like once you figure out like, cool, these channels are really important for me, there becomes really interesting ways that you can like actually push your product direction to better capture those channels. Consistently seeing huge unlocks there where founders go through this stage of like, okay, I need to build something that people want and they'll like and use. Now I've done that and I'm starting to plateau. Like, how do I get to like the next level? The answer, if you have a good product, is cool. Figure out like your main channels and then just like slam the gas on like, how do I maximize those and build my product around it?
Awesome. And then one other thing, you just tweeted, we just hit, or maybe, I don't know if it was recent, but at some point you tweeted, we just hit 1,000 daily active users, probably nothing, LOL. And that post blew up. How do you stay grounded when things are moving quickly and avoid burnout?
So I think burnout comes when you feel like you can't take steps towards a meaningful goal. So there's two sides of that coin. The first one is not having a meaningful goal you feel like you're moving towards. And the other one is having a meaningful goal, but like feeling like you're not making progress in that direction.
Totally.
So I feel relatively immune to burnout. When we got like the Rupa money, immediately like I hit my account on a Friday, and then like Sunday night I was like texting Tara, I was like, should I start a company? And she's like, yes. I'm like, cool. And then like it was like filed by like Monday. So like I like didn't take time off. I like just immediately like went into like, cool, time to run now.
Probably because you had been thinking about it for so long. It's like, now's your moment, you know?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think the real way to like prevent burnout is like make sure you have a clear goal that's meaningful to you. Like something in the distance is like, this is what I'm moving towards. And then if you're able to make like consistent progress towards that goal, I think you're at least for me, I'm very unlikely to burn out. The places where I've felt like, oh, maybe I feel burnout is like, I don't know where I'm going, or I know where I'm going and I feel like I can't get there.
No, it makes a lot of sense. And we talked a little bit about this earlier. You're really open online, like either about your sobriety, hard moments, the mistakes you're making, as well as all of the building in public and successes. But has the level of vulnerability that you've had online ever backfired, or have you ever felt like, because I'm always very like curious about someone who's able to do that. It's not natural for me to be so vulnerable, like in public and online. So I always love to hear that.
I literally tweeted something this morning and then like deleted it like 10 minutes later. So
Good to know I'm not the only one.
you're definitely not the only one. No, there's like I'm a persona online. Like what I have on X, there's like I have a notes in my phones. Like these are like the 6 things I tweet about. And then I try to like make good content like around those things. And so I think that finding good areas that you can make good content around that you're comfortable talking about is important. But there's totally things that like I never talk about. Like the tweet this morning, someone posted a VC anti-signals or like anti-signals that like investors look for in startups. I tweeted a list of I shouldn't have done. I tweeted a list of like anti-signals that I've seen from VCs. I'll give you one, which is like an investor once that like wrote us like $1 million term sheet and then like never wired funds. But
Gosh.
there's definitely things that are just like they're not in my benefit to talk about, so like I
Yeah.
don't do it. But I would say that like now I'm in the founder seat, there's more things I can talk about because I'm not as worried about them reflecting as negatively on Rupa anymore.
Right. Yeah. Because you can decide whether it's going to negatively impact you and your company versus having to think about a lot of other people. So
100%.
that's awesome. Yeah. And then where is Sunflower going next? Are you thinking new features, partnerships, or even supporting other types of addiction?
Yeah, so we currently support almost every major addiction type.
Sure.
The only thing we don't do is phone addiction. I think from a product roadmap, we just launched the final quote unquote pillar, which is like helping users talk to a practitioner. I think now we're about to enter a stage of adding just more core value into the product. So like making our journal better, adding in better stats into our timer. I think we need to like add in a widget. There's cool things we can do with the community where maybe we do like a clubhouse style like AA group is like, hey, I'm really
Cool.
struggling and I want to go like
Yeah.
talk to a bunch of people. I want to bring in like influencers into the education section and make like masterclass style like DIY courses. So there's now like a lot of depth in each of these pillars that I want to add into. We're probably going to kick off our seed fundraise process here in a couple months. And then, yeah, just keep helping people stay sober and growing and making money.
Yeah, that's great. So what's one decision that you've made this year that you're especially proud of?
Ooh, one decision that I'm especially proud of. That's an interesting question. I would say hiring my team. Like it's a really big decision, but like the people that work at Sunflower are so freaking cool and like pinch myself every day that I get to work with these incredible humans. We have somehow acquired this group of people that are very passionate about the problem that we're working on and just absolutely insane at whatever it is that they do. So I am most proud of just like my hiring decisions and ability to be able to recruit really cool people.
That's awesome.
Love that
And then
answer.
this is kind of a meta question, but how does Sunflower continue to thrive even as the users are ideally getting healthier and more self-sufficient in their recovery?
This is very business focused, but one of the reasons why I think that addiction, you can make a really good business here is you never actually like stop becoming an addict. Like I haven't smoked for 7 years, but last month I was in SF and we had just launched a big feature. We're at the top of this like WeWork. It was like gorgeous out. And I was like, dang, I really want to smoke a joint right now. So like I will still get hit with cravings. 7 years later, you don't like stop becoming an addict. You evolve in your usage and how you like look at your own identity and engage with like a sobriety community. But we have lots of people on our platform that have been sober for like 5 or 6 years. So I would say that the way that the engage changed, you shift kind of into like a sponsor role where you like want to give back, but you still struggle with cravings. You still track your time to how long you've been sober for, and yeah, I think it's a very sticky long term product. Versus other things where like my little brother used to suffer from panic attacks and then he started doing CBT and like he doesn't have panic attacks anymore. So it's one of the reasons why we had a CBT product called Quirk. It's one of the reasons why we sunsetted that is like we felt the incentives were just very misaligned of like, cool, as a business, you want to keep users, but like from like a humanitarian point of view, like you want them to heal and move on.
And then last question before we move into the rapid fire, but have you gotten any pushback from therapists or clinicians on Sunflower? Do they see it as competition or just an additional tool in their kit?
Yeah, it's a good question. That's funny. The answer is no. I think they see it as an additional tool in their kit. There's definitely been some that are kind of like scared of it. It's one of the reasons why we took this positioning of an AI sponsor versus an AI therapist is we truly aren't trying to replace therapists. We see this as a tool that's going to work alongside like human therapy. And I think that a therapist that's using AI is going to be more effective than one that's only the therapist. I think a lot of them see that and they know that this is evolving. And ultimately, we're not trying to replace them. We're trying to make them 100 times more powerful. So yeah, no pushback there. And I think the other thing that I would say on that too is I think research is starting to come out to show just the impact of how effective AI is for mental health. There's just a study that was done by Dartmouth that I think showed that generative AI chatbots can improve the symptoms of depression by about 51%. So we're beginning to see like research that comes out to show that just how effective this is for mental health. So I think as we get more research that evolves, we're going to see increased usage of stuff like this.
Super cool. All right, switching to rapid fire questions. We'll just ask you these back to back and feel free to say whatever comes to mind. So first one is, what's the most underrated skill for a solo founder?
Everyone says that you should be really good at sales. I think ultimately, if you're a solo founder, you have to be a really good generalist. So it's not any one skill, but you have to be really good at a lot of different things.
What's one decision you were scared to make, but you're really glad that you did?
It was definitely leaving to go start my own startup. I was absolutely terrified and that I would die, but I'm very glad I did.
And a mindset shift that changed how you lead?
My team's work is my work, and I can't judge my output by what I would do, but if someone does something bad or something good, that is a direct reflection of me.
What's one book or idea that changed your approach to building?
I really like the mom test. I force everyone on my team to read it. I think that if you're a founder and you have not read the mom test, you are doing yourself a disservice. You should definitely go read it. But the TLDR is your users will lie to you, just like your mom, because your mom loves you. And you need to learn how to ask questions to get past people saying, oh, wow, this is so great. I would totally use this.
Awesome. I feel like that's also powerful for anybody in like a sales or fundraising role as well. Cool. What's a piece of startup advice that you think is totally BS?
Oh, wow. I think it's bullshit. I think that the whole product, there's like this weird religion / debate about product versus growth. And or sales and marketing. It's like, oh, you should make a really good product and like, don't worry about like sales or marketing, or you like shouldn't spend money on ads. I think that ultimately real growth comes from the combination of product and marketing. And that when you make the product really good and your marketing and sales is really good, I think that was our true magic of Rupa, is that it wasn't product led or like sales led, but it was like a combination of the both. And once you figure that out, I've seen people have really major unlocks.
Well, last question for you. This is a little bit of a 3-part question here. So if you had a magic wand, what's one thing that you would fix for yourself, the recovery space, and then for other founders?
I would love to be able to program better. That's probably like a stereotypical answer, but yeah, I would be, if I could give myself anything, it'd be like, cool, let's make Koby a 10x better programmer. That'd be great. One thing I would fix for the recovery space, I would give it more VC cash and smart founders that are building here. I think that this is one of the most important problems on the face of the planet, and it deserves to have way more money and people focused on solving for it. And then what was the third one?
Other
Other
founders.
founders.
One thing I would fix for other founders, if I could give, this is a cop out, but I hope I want them to all raise money. Let them all have really great seed rounds.
Yeah. Let that not be the number one issue they're focused on. I'm sure they all have more important things to be doing.
Exactly. Let everyone go back to building.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, thanks so much for joining. And it was such an honor to have you on the podcast.
Yeah.
Oh my
Where
gosh.
can people find like information about you or follow you and learn more about Sunflower?
Yeah, Koby J. Conrad on Twitter is the best place. Sunflowersober.com is our website. And if you are struggling with any kind of addiction, you can download our app on iOS and Android. Just search for Sunflower Sober.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well, thank you so
Well,
much,
it's great to see
Koby.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, you guys.
Rachel, what stood out to you from today's conversation with Koby?
Yeah, the biggest thing was really the fact that he cares a lot about people. Like you could hear it really throughout the conversation. It was what connected him to Rupa. It is what drives him when he's building teams at Rupa. It's what's driving him actually at Sunflower and building the teams out there. And then also if you think about like what Sunflower is built for, it's built for people struggling with addiction. But you know, again, people I feel is like just a big connective thread in what he kind of works for essentially.
Yeah. And I kind of saw it as even like a different angle of the same thing you just mentioned, which is like his heart has to be in it, which we've even heard from other guests, you know, high performing guests we've had on the podcast, like Nathan and Rahini. Rahini was also all about the people when she joined Square. Nathan was kind of like, I'm not going to spend the time doing all this hard work, getting a startup off the ground or joining early stage startups if my heart isn't in it. And that And then again, Koby talked about how that saved him from burnout. So I think it just really kind of fit within that archetype that we keep seeing from top first builders. One thing that also are a couple things that stuck out to me. Number one, he mentioned this concept that if you build a product that's great, people won't just come. And that is kind of BS advice that's out there. And so, you really need creative distribution strategies, marketing, and sales to actually get your product in front of the right people so that they can decide if they love it or not. Otherwise, they may never see it. And then also, as a first builder, something that we talk about, even in the piece that we just wrote, I think a couple of weeks ago about first builders and the new tech mafia, we talk about these high slope environments being one of the reasons why first builders are more likely to found unicorn companies after they have these experiences like Koby had at Rupa. But it's not just the high slope experience. Sometimes it's also their proximity to the founders in the prior company that they worked for. So I noticed Koby, kept coming back to like different styles that he initially liked or didn't like when he started at Rupa, working really closely with the co-founders. And then he was kind of able to choose for himself at the end of the experience, what sort of things would I take from that experience and the culture that they created into my next journey. And it reminded me a lot of my time at Cruise too, because, based on my time at Cruise and, seeing how Kyle and Dan operated as co-founders of the company, I was able to really see like, what are the things that maybe made it so successful and allowed them to sell it to GM and get to the point that they did. And then how can I look for those super skills and founders that we back at the council? So there's just a lot that you learn by being so close to those early days.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just like being able to be on calls. I remember being on sales calls with RF or Webb over from Komodo and just like hearing how they
think even. Yeah.
Yeah. Like how they think, the types of questions they push on, where they push and where they don't push also.
Yeah.
It's just so valuable to kind of see that. And I do think that, like when you're an early employee or when you have that opportunity, you can really take a lot onto your kind of just whatever you build next.
Yep. Well, anyways, thank you so much, everybody, for listening. We're going to drop links to everything Koby mentioned in the show notes so you can dive deeper into Sunflower, his book, Channels of Growth, and more.
And if you want more stories like this, be sure to subscribe to First Builders wherever you get podcasts. And also don't forget to sign up for our newsletter at thecouncil.com.
Yes. And make sure to give us a rating too if you like the show. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.